Okay, so for today's lesson, I want to talk to you about specifically into pricing. So this is going to be a shorter version of a video that we posted, which is about an hour long. This is the short form version. If you want the longer form version, please go out and find the video. Again, it's about an hour long, but for the sake of those individuals that just like a short bit of information and not an absolute deep dive, we have made this short little video. So I'm going to share my screen here. Basically, what I'm doing is I want to kind of give you an idea of the way that we price. I'll throw some stats up here in the screen in post production, but we are sitting at about, I believe it's 85% occupancy rate. Occupancy rate. So for those of you who don't know, occupancy basically just means is the amount of days that we're renting a particular property in a month is about 87%. So when we go and we do any sort of calculation if a property is going to be profitable or not, we always try to consider about 15 days renting, kind of a worst case scenario. We are very conservative in what we think the rental rate is. We're not going to get into how we choose what the rental rate is, but we think we're pretty conservative on that. So 15 days, conservative rate, like, is this still profitable? Is this still cash flow? Meaning, do we have at least enough revenue coming in to pay for the mortgage, electricity, water, utilities, internet, TV, all those things we need to keep that property up and going. When you're doing a short-term rental, you need to be treating it just like a business in that, you got money going out. What's the money coming in? Are you at least break even? So we do that calculation based on about 15 days. And as a backup, we always consider if we were going to turn this into a long-term rental, let's say just we swung and we missed and we were like, you know what, nobody's renting this thing. Man, we got it wrong. Could we convert that property into a long-term rental, and what would it rent for? And if we did, would we be breaking even? So as long as we have those two things kind of match, we're kind of a go for a property. Either way. So this is a video is specifically a lesson. This lesson is specifically just about how we do our pricing and how we sort of do adjustments to ensure or to maximize our return on investment, maximize our cash flow, or maximize our occupancy to get the occupancy as high as possible and the vacancy as low as possible, which is the goal for any real estate investing, regardless if you're doing a short term or a long term. So we're going to pop in and we're going to look at specifically a couple of our different properties. And I'm going to show you sort of how we think about things in regards to, pricing, what tools do we use for pricing? And without further ado, let's just jump into it. If you are, I'll say this, if you aren't familiar with who we are, my name's Elliot Schoner. I run a company called AtlantaState.com with the wife. We do buy and sell regular real estate agents. We have a pretty nice team with us, over 100 transactions last year. With that, we work a lot with investors. And with those investors, we also have a property management company where we manage both long-term and short-term rentals. And we just added mortgage to our particular company. So if you come to us, we can buy you a house. We can help you sell a house. If you're investing, we can help you find the property. We'll do the property management for you. And of course, we'll help you get the financing as well. So we hope to add insurance later on down the road, but stay tuned for that. So if I pull up, let's just go to Airbnb. This property is one of our cabins up in Dahlonega, Georgia. It is sort of a destination property, kind of close to some of the wineries, which have a little bit of a pull, not a great pull, but it is a place that people go out just to sort of get away, go up in the mountains. It's on 10 acres, has a beautiful view of the mountains, and it's pretty nice and secluded. Property all in was about $800,000 or so for us to purchase. Mortgages obviously pretty significant. We did purchase it, about a year ago. So at the higher interest rate, so we do need to generate a pretty good amount of income to break even. And so far, this property has been a pretty wild success for us. So when we go in, and whenever you're looking to price things, again, look at the deep dive, the longer video for how we price things in the high or low. But the idea is that we use the Airbnb smart pricing initially to set where we're going to put a property on the market for. So For those of you who don't know who Smart Pricing is, if you go into the calendar into Airbnb and you hit pricing, you will be brought to an area where you can put the sort of the maximum you want to rent out a property for and the minimum you want to rent out a property for, and you can turn this thing on that's right here called Smart Pricing. And what Smart Pricing does is it basically takes the amounts that you want to rent it, and it says, okay, this is what we suggest, but we're not going to rent anything lower than this, or we're not going to rent anything more than this. But we are going to adjust the pricing based on what we see, how the market's doing. So if there's a lot of vacancies, they might reduce the price to make your property more enticing. If there's very little properties available, they may increase the price because you're the only one out there, so why not get the highest price possible? They will increase the price on like the weekends, for example, but during the weekdays they'll have a lower. So for the most part, there's, let's call it AI. I don't think it's AI really, but there's an algorithm in there that Airbnb is using to sort of change the prices around for you, so you don't have to manually go in there and edit. Now, this is a very good thing to use. We use it for any pricing that is 30 days out, 60 days out, 12 months out. But what we won't do is we do not use the pricing for anything that is very, very close. So within a couple of weeks, and I'll back up and say, not 30 days out, but we won't do anything that is anywhere close to, let's say, at 30 days we're starting to do adjustments. At 2 weeks we're starting to do adjustments, and there's a reason for that. If you think about it, if everyone in Airbnb says, "Oh, this smart pricing is very good," and there's actually some tools outside of Airbnb that you can use as well. I won't get into their names. Don't want to be sued for saying their products suck, but there's some tools out there and they just suck. Like basically, think about it. If everyone is using these tools for pricing, and the algorithm says, "Hey, in this area, pricing, it seems a little bit high. People are renting, so they reduce it." The tool's not just reducing your house. I mean, think about it. It's not just reducing your house. It's going to be reducing everyone else's house at the same time. So it might say, well, a certain weekend it's going to rent for $200, but nobody's renting it, and so let's reduce it down to $175. Well, it's going to reduce everyone else's property as well. So is the algorithm really helping you? It is potentially helping you because it's reducing prices and setting some pricing without having to manually go in and enter everything. And it's really great for getting bookings that are at the higher amounts. However, when you start getting close, you want to end up being sort of, I don't want to say the discounted property because it just sounds terrible, but you want to be the property that's the most enticing. And for a lot of people, that's going to be pricing, believe it or not. So you want to be the property out there that if someone's looking to book it last minute and they have 10 properties, assuming all the properties are the same, they're going to book the one that's cheaper. It's just, you would do it, everyone else is going to do it. So the idea behind sort of how we get this really great sort of return on investment is, of course, we find great properties and we purchase them for prices that we can rent in certain ways that allow us to get a good return on investment. But it is really about increasing the occupancy as much as possible. And we do that through manually going in and not using tools. There are a lot of property management companies out there that will just throw these properties in these tools and just run it. They're not taking a big investment in it. They're not going and manually changing things and editing and kind of in real time, fixing things. And what happens is unfortunately, the investors probably don't get great returns. So we want to stay at least 85% occupancy, and this is how we do it. So if I go into this property, I'm just going to scroll through, and I'll just talk about the things that I see. Again, this is the cabin. And if you'll notice, we're pretty well booked out. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days out, or 8 days that we did not book. So we have, let's call it 22 days here that we booked. If I go into here in April, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days that we booked, right? Let me pop into another property. If I go in here to one of our lake properties, this is a cabin on Lake Lanier. Same thing for March. We can look at it, pretty solidly booked. 1, 2, 3 days available. In April, there's a VRBO booking, so we have 2 days available. So the point is you can tell whatever we're doing, whether picking the right properties in the right location, whatever it is, staging them right, whatever, it is working. And we know it's working because look at how we're booked. So one of the things that I do again is I go into that smart pricing, and how I figure out the highs and the lows as far as my smart pricing is concerned is I'll survey the area, not using a tool, but going there as a guest, searching an Airbnb and going in this particular area, what properties are available and what's the price point. I'll try to find a property that is kind of like the higher end property in the area, and I'll say what are they renting for? Let's say they're renting for $200 a night, and I'll note that, and I'll say my property is not as good as that. Actually, mine's a 3.2. That's a 4.3, so it has an extra room. It's nicer interior. Like just kind of being real honest with yourself, right? But they're renting for $200 a night, and then I'll find a property that's kind of like the cheap one, right, in the area, and let's say that one's 135. Okay, and that 135, I might look at it and be like, man, this thing's kind of like mobile home feeling. It's not really great. Our property is definitely a lot more to offer. And so I kind of get an idea like if I list something for 200, well, they're probably going to stay in this really beautiful property. So I'm not going to get 200. And I don't want to go as low as sort of the trailer park, like mobile home, crazy looking one. And there's always some that are out there that are just like kind of crazy. Like I would never stay in that kind of property. Not there. So I usually go a little bit higher than that. So I'll set pricing, let's say my high and mid for that smart pricing at like a little bit higher than sort of the cheap guy. And then sort of in the high end, the expensive guy is the one that I don't think is a very good comparable. And the reason why I do that is if that high end property gets booked, then I kind of end up being the best property in the area. And so if that's booked, I kind of follow to number one as the best option. And if I'm doing that, I want to have the highest rate. And, so I have the highest rate. And again, on the low end, I don't want to go too low because if you rent out low, even if you're maxed out in occupancy, you can still lose money because you're just charging too less. So I stick in that particular sweet spot. And so I set it, and again, I set the smart pricing, and I let that go for the entire year. People can book out. So when people end up booking, right now we're in March 11th, and when people are booking for June, July, they're paying the highest price point, and I'm getting like a really, really great return on investment. But not everyone's going to be booking at that high price point. And so the people that actually book earlier pay the highest price for all of our listings. However, as I get closer, when I'm 60 days out, I start looking at it. When I'm 30 days out, I'm start looking at it. And definitely when I'm 2 weeks out, I'm start looking at it, and I start to make adjustments. So if I was to go into, and so this is our again our lake house property, and so March is pretty book solid, April's pretty book solid because of these tools. If I go into May, which is a property, is a month that I haven't done a whole lot of work on, I look at this, and if you'll notice, this is what people do: they book the weekends because people go travel to the lake and to the cabin and all that on the weekends. So I have my weekends booked. Weekends booked. There was a weekend booked here. They just canceled. So I have that open. Weekends booked. If I go down, and so let's just take this for an example, and let's just pretend, for example, that this right here is actually booked. What I would have is the 275 price point is where I'm making my most money. And so right now I can tell you with this mortgage, like my mortgage is already paid just with these 3 bookings. But I don't want to leave this out because I want this to be, 87% occupancy. For whatever reason, well, I can tell you May is not a great spot for a lake house. And so they're not really booking. And this is priced higher than what some other properties are out there. There's other properties in the 200 range. So if you'll notice what I did is, and this is really a perfect example, if you notice that this is all 275, the reason why I did that is because there's a good chance that someone's going to come in and book for a week and a half or book for 5 or 6 days, and I want to get that. If you notice within this range, it's almost $100. Well, it's $100 cheaper thereabouts. And the reason is it's less likely for me to get booked between the 7th and the 11th because people usually don't go to a lake house checking in on Sunday and leaving on a Thursday. So the point is that when I get my peak areas booked, the weekends, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the holidays, things like that, I start to look at the in-between times that most people don't have booked because they leave them at either the smart pricing or they just don't change them at all and they just don't get decreased enough. Or when they do get decreased, they're being decreased with everyone else and they're not getting decreased quick enough. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll actually change this. Instead of 275, I'll change this to the 195. I'm going to keep this one open because it's May all the way through April. As we start to hit April, I'll start to reduce this down because I'll be like, hey, nobody's renting and I need to do something. Now, look, now, if I would have reduced the pricing automatically, knowing that the weekends were going to book higher and then just leaving the weekdays cheaper, which you can put those settings in Airbnb, look what I would have missed out on. So in May is kind of the peak season. So I want to charge the maximum possible. And what did I get for my cabin or for my lake house? I got week-long bookings. If I would have set the pricing only high in the weekends and not during the week, anticipating the in-between days are not going to book as high, I would have lost a tremendous amount of revenue. Instead, this person booked from the 8th to the 18th and they paid premium for the whole week. This person, Wednesday through Sunday, they paid premium for that Thursday booking. Someone booked from the 26th, for that week, they paid premium for those days. So I'm not going to adjust or I'm not going to reduce anything until I get that, that couple of weeks out. And then I'm going to make it like super, super enticing to people. Let's look at July. Same thing. People booked solid, booked, and very little days that are open. So you can see that it doesn't make sense to set aggressive or reduce pricing or it makes sense to be more aggressive in pricing, to have higher amounts on the weekends, to have a little bit cheaper during the week, but not too crazy because people will book those week-long trips. What I do and why we achieve the 87% occupancy is I wait for days, like let's say for April, for example, when I find these little periods where I would normally be booking this for about, let's call it, $400, $350. I'll come in here and I'll start to shift this to be a little bit cheaper. So for example, if I'm looking at this right now, I'm saying Monday, who's going to check in on a Monday, stay Monday night, stay Tuesday night and check out on a Friday? Actually, probably not a whole lot of people. However, I might be able to find somebody that is just coming in for a birthday or something like that. Somebody wants to treat. So I'll go and change that to $175 and that'll change once I refresh the screen. So that'll be cheaper. And that is going to be a super, super bargain. If I charged $175 for the whole night, I would lose my butt. I wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage. But I can charge $175 once I've already cleared everything. I've gotten the 15 days at the higher price point, exactly where I thought. I can go in and change some of the pricing. If I go up and I would have changed the pricing here, and I would have changed the pricing here. And you can actually see the difference. This pricing was higher. This person booked 2 days. That person booked 2 days. They paid $733. They paid $596. So almost, 150 bucks or so more because this person booked at a higher price point. This one I reduced because I had just like sort of this in between month. So let me go to another property as a pretty good example. This is a property in Sugar Hill. It is a lower end property. And it is, kind of in the middle of nowhere, not close to anything, but we love it because this property actually has a top level, which is what you're seeing here, and a bottom level that we rent for a long-term rental. So we actually make about $1,000 to $1,200 off the top net for a short-term rental, but we're making an additional $1,200 for the bottom, just a little 1-1 studio. That works out pretty well for us. So here's a perfect example. Is I let the algorithms go in there and do what they do. And as far as April, if I'm going in here to make adjustments, I'm looking at this and going, weekends booked, weekends booked, weekends booked, weekends booked. And the reason is this property generally attracts people that are coming in for a wedding. There's a wedding venue there very close to this. It's about 2 miles away. And so people are coming in for weddings and they're coming in for the weekends. And so that's what we get to see. Now, I need to be the cheapest person to fill in these days. There's not that many people, folks, that are going to come in and stay Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. It's just not going to happen. So what have I done is the lowest rental rate for anything in this particular area is about $135,000, and that is that trailer park mobile home type of deal that I was talking about. Well, I want to blow them out of the water. Like I want people to look at it and go like, wow, this is such a great deal. Like I'm definitely booking this over anything else, almost to the point of like, why is this thing so cheap? And I've actually had people reach out to me and say, hey, why, does this place have plates and dishes? Does this place have linens? Like, why is this so cheap? And we just say, hey, we just give discounts as we get closer to the time. But the point is that we've severely discounted this. So if you searched right now, like it's March 11th, and let's say you got a business trip that's coming in and you need to find a spot, kind of last minute, When you search us, we are going to be, offered number one, because we have great conversions for Airbnb and short-term rentals. We have 5-star reviews on our properties, and we're going to be number one because we're the cheapest. So people are going to see that $95. They're going to see our imaging and our professional photography, and they're going to click on it, and they are going to book, and this will fill in. And we will end April with all the weekends booked, and then these will be filled in, pretty much probably sitting with the same thing, about 3 days or so vacant. We've done the same thing here. We had this booked, we had this booked, had this booked, had this booked. We would come in here and we would reduce this down. Most people will leave this area blank. They will not, reduce this. They'll keep this at the $175, range, which is normally where we book this out. You can't do that, folks. If you do, you're probably not going to find that person, because someone's going to want to come in and stay the 2 days, and they're going to look at you and go, well, yeah, but your property is more expensive, and why would I stay there versus the other? You want to make it so enticing that if there's only 3 people looking for that time slot, you are the top choice without question. Now, you will notice that on the weekends, I still have the higher pricing here. The reason is, excuse me, the reason is, even though that is just a 2-day stint, I would normally reduce it. That is a Saturday and a Sunday, and it's very likely that somebody will want to come in and just stay for Saturday and Sunday, stay for the weekend, and then pop out on Monday back on a plane to wherever they need to go. So I'm going to keep that at a higher price point. As I get closer, into next week, will go ahead and reduce that down for just a very last minute booking. So again, I want to keep this video short. There's a bigger deep dive on this where I go into every detail. I go into how we start with initial pricing, how we evaluate properties, and so forth. It's about an hour long. It'll be posted right along this one. I wanted to do something short for those people that don't just want the quick of it. Let me summarize for you. If you're going to be pricing your property and you want to maximize your occupancy rate, you cannot rely simply on the algorithms. You're going to hate it, because the algorithms, while they're adjusting your property, they're going to adjust everyone else's property. And so what we've realized is that every week you have to go in, search your property, look for the property, search like you're going to guess, search your property, your area, search for things that are around it, figure out what other people are charging, and then you need to be comparable, equal to, or less than, if you want to get bookings. In some areas, especially the market being a little bit slower right now, if there's 15 houses, there might only be 5 or 6 people looking for a rental in that particular area. You want to be the top 1 or 2 people, so that way those people choose your property. If there's 15 properties and you guys are all priced about the same and the houses are all about the same, why would they choose you over anyone else? No, you want to have a property that's comparable, a property that is comparable in how it looks and feels and size and all that kind of stuff. But you also want to be the discount person. So when the least expensive, so when someone comes in, they'll look at it and they go, this property's nice, this property's also nice, but look, this one's $20 cheaper. Let's stay in the one that's $20 cheaper. Price point, whether you like it or not, price point is the reason why people are going to choose your property over another. There are some luxury properties that people will choose just because they want to be in that area. They'll take top premium, but 2 properties alike, they're going to look at the reviews, assuming both have 5-star reviews, both have Superhost status. The thing that's going to be the differentiator is going to be the price point. So make sure you don't rely simply on the algorithm to do that bidding for you, because again, if they're doing it for you, they're doing it for everyone else, and you're all going to be at the same. Go in, let the algorithm book you stuff, and do alterations for a year out, 6 months out, 3 months out. But as you get 60 days, start to take a look and do some manual pricing. 30 days out, you should be heavily manual pricing. In 2 weeks out, you should be deeply discounting, looking for the odd days, deeply discounting that, being almost a bargain sale, and you will stay occupied. So hopefully this video had a little value to you. If it did, love to subscribe, get the alerts. We do try to post stuff every week to help investors maximize their cash on cash return, increasing cash flow to build generational wealth. Of course, smash the like button. We do everything here. We do for free. We don't charge for anything. We don't sell any courses. We don't do anything. This is kind of our give back. The only way that you can say thanks is to simply smash that like button. And of course, if you'd like us to evaluate a property for you, you need helping with pricing and stuff like that, happy to jump on a Zoom call. You can post a comment below. Tell me the areas that you're looking to purchase in and whatever. I'll tell you if we're buying in those areas, if we're not buying in those areas, why. Give you as much information as I possibly can. Until next time, be smart. Don't rely on AI. It's not that great. And if you want to get results, sometimes you have to do the manual work and do what other people are unwilling to do. And in this case, it is manually adjusting all of your listings weekly.